So since today is a Saturday and it is my family's vehicle, of course I want to be doing this on my own time. So welcome to my home garage. This is where I do all the magic. So here is the kit I'm going to put in the vehicle today. I've already prepped this at work. So what I got here is a Fortin evo-one. I've got a mycar module for the smartphone app. I've added on a shock sensor, and I also have a flashlight in case I want to change some settings. I have a siren in here. I'm going to be adding siren and horn functionality to this vehicle. A dual zone shock sensor that I have in here. This thing should be pretty sweet when it's all said and done, so I'm going to go run this out to the vehicle and start installing it. I realized that I just said that pretty quickly. Let me just take one more second. In here, I have my adapter harness from my linker module. This was a shock sensor which I had to diode isolate, shrink wrap, and make a custom plug from something I had lying around so I can have that plug right in there. Now, since this is a digital installation, it's CAN bus, because I have my twisted leads right here for my CAN connections, and I also have high voltage connections. This vehicle is a hybrid, so it kind of takes high voltage and low voltage all in the same installation. It's an interesting combination, but that's how it is for a 19 Kia. They don't make a T-harness, and if they did, it really wouldn't be a whole lot less work than this one would be anyway. I know it looks like a lot, but once this thing is in the vehicle, you'd be surprised how quick it shrinks, and it's really not that intimidating at all. Like I mentioned, I am going to be installing the siren in here for the alarm remote start. So I'm just going to wire tie that into a harness. I'm going to run that through the firewall with this wonderful tool that I have. It's called a grabby tool. This is actually a grabby tool deluxe. See, when you squeeze it, it has a little grabby. That's why they call it the grabby tool, because it has the grabbiness. Great tool to have. So when you go under the dash in here, this will vary on your car, but in the Kia that I'm working on, this right here is the grommet. You can see light through there. So I'm just going to make a little slice right there, make a small hole so I can put my siren line right through here and pull it right through. It'll be nice and self-sealing as well when I'm done pulling it through. Once I've made my first slice to get through that grommet right there, I just took this screwdriver. I'm going to push it right through there, like so. Let's see if you can see. There it is, going through the grommet. And you find it on the other side. This might be actually impossible to see, but right back there you can see the screwdriver pop through. So now I could pull it out, take my grabby tool and replace it and force it through here so I can get a good easy grasp on my wire, pull it through and start the install on the inside of the part of the vehicle. Okay, so close it, let go. Okay, open it. See, with one person inside, they hold it, you feed it through, close it. Do it again, I missed. Oh, shit. Alright. Damn it, hold on. It's hard to do this with two hands. I need another hand. Okay, open it. Open it. Close it. Okay. Okay, pull it slowly. Pull it. Pull it. Caitlin. Open the... Caitlin. Do you understand English? Open the thing. Let it go. Now, pull the actual tool. Pull it. Keep pulling. Okay. Stop. And then there's the wire on the inside of the vehicle. Just pull it through, get all your slack, go back outside, mount it up, and then you can start doing your install on the inside of the vehicle. Now, whenever you're installing any aftermarket accessories underneath the hood, you should always try to make it look like it came from the factory. It shouldn't look like an afterthought. So always protect your wires. Even though this one's not going to be in any location against any hot elements, wire loom, Just is a good practice. And it just adds that little professional touch that you should always go for. And lastly, you want to have your siren always on an angle, so that way, God forbid, if any water collects in this area from splashing from the road or anything like that, snow, whatever have, you want to have it escape so you have a good way to let it stay nice and dry. And just make sure it's run through safely, and it's always in a grommet protected, so that way it's not going to be chafing against anything. And that's it. Once you get these screws out of the underdash, you're going to have one plug here, which is, you just squeeze that plug and pull it out, and then over here, again, squeeze, turn it, let the panel come through, so that way you have an unobstructed area to work with under the dashboard. Okay, so before I start installing everything in here, the first thing I want to do is I want to figure out where the best place is to mount this kit, right? So up in here, where I came through with my wire, I have this bracket here, and I have another thing, so my wire for my siren I can tie onto that, and I can stay far away from this. This you want to stay far away from. That's a steering knuckle. When you turn a wheel, it does that, and that's bad. You don't want that. So if you look really in there and get creative, you can bury it all the way up there in the corner and get two good solid wire ties on there. You can run a few more down here to connect all your harnesses and be nice and safe and secure and out of the way. That's the way you should do it. Since I have to actually unplug my module to program it and do the smart car and program the smartphone app, I'm just going to leave it laying up in there. I'll program it, and then I'll tie the wire ties on last, but I can run all my connections as if they were going to be permanent, but it'll give me the flexibility to pull it down later, to program it, access it, change anything if I ever want to change anything. I'd like to note that this here is the install guide from Fortin, so it tells me the colors and locations. But I'm not just going to mount them and connect them like this guide says. I'm going to use it as a reference, but I'm not going to trust it. Always trust, but verify. Always have a test light and make sure the wires are functioning exactly as they're explained in the guide, because if it's not, then you have to do a little extra work. Or these things come with wire color codes. If you're not sure about getting too crazy with wire testing, you could use that as a backup. But never trust, always verify. So this here is my shock sensor. I'm going to mount it right here because it's kind of like central to the vehicle. It's not going to be in the way of anything whatsoever. And what's even really great about it is that the adjustment screw is facing downwards, so when this dashboard is put back together, you can easily adjust it higher or lower without any problem at all. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily mount this linker up high, because this is going to require cell service. So you want to have this as unobstructed as possible. You don't want it to be underneath something solid and metallic, because that's going to really degrade the connection. So you want to kind of like get that up and around here. For now, I'm just going to kind of leave it, because when I test it, I'm going to make sure that I get full strength, and if I don't, then it'll give me the ability to move it around a little bit later. So that's a good idea. But for now, I know it needs to be somewhere around there, right? Next thing, you got your siren. You don't need all this wire, so I'm just going to kind of like shorten this down a little bit. Get that out of here. These here are all my starter ignition accessories. This is my constant 12. Here is my ground, and I'm gonna take this I'm going to connect it along with my ground for my siren. I'm going to put them on one single spot, and this here is going to be the bolt that I'm going to use for that. My stripe is my constant. The stripe is my 12 volt out to my siren. So that's going to be here. I'm going to be wanting this to be right about yay long. That'll be good. So I'm going to put this with this right here. How I'm going to do that is I'm going to keep this existing ring. I'm going to use my insulation strippers. Poke a hole through there. Take my ground from my siren, put it through there. So the siren ground and my alarm and remote start ground is the same ground. It's a good practice to get in. And I got one ground connection instead of multiple ground points. So now I'll just take my ratchet, there's your ground. You always want to use a factory bolt if you possibly can. They make the best grounds in the world. Take it from me. And again, try to route your wiring away from any other existing factory wiring. You don't want to interfere with anything else. So there you go. And this here I'm going to connect to my siren output, which I believe is going to be this white wire right here. So I'm going to be testing for my high voltage connections right now. So the first thing you want to do is check. For instance, 12 volts is saying pin 2. Parking lights, can, high. All this should be tested before you make all your connections in the vehicle. Why is this thing dinging? Stop dinging. Stay there, behave. Don't go there. Just go not here. Alright, so we need to get on pin 2 for our 12 volts. You can use your tool of choice. However, I always like my insulation stripper. And that, my friends, is a terrific connection. The only thing better than that is soldering, but I don't like soldering because I find that in a lot of these modern vehicles it actually does more damage to the wires than it does good. You can simply easily overheat that and cause all kinds of problems in your life. And I don't need problems in my life, so I just stick to that method. My next one is going to be these three. So we'll work on these, which is going to be my starter, accessory, and ignition. These here are my CAN bus high and low connectors. What I'm going to do on these is I'm not going to use my insulation stripper. I'm just going to use my regular strippers and do them by hand. So I don't really want to mess these guys up if I can avoid it. So green is CAN high, and that's going to go to, let's see, orange green. Here. Just leave yourself a little bit of slack, not too much where it's going to be sloppy, but enough so it's easy on yourself when you need to service something down the road in the future. If you want to upgrade it or swap it out, do something like that, it's good to have a little bit of pre-planning in your installations. This vehicle actually has two CAN systems in it. It has CAN 1 and CAN 2. A lot of Fords actually have that, like my vehicle has that. I'm starting to see that more and more. Jeeps, Chryslers, Dodges, Kia obviously here. There's just so many CAN control modules in these vehicles. They're starting to have multiple CAN main connectors. But it sure as hell beats the old way of having all these high voltage connections. Then we got orange black, verified on the sheet. Brown goes to orange, and this is orange, brown, and that's orange. Unfortunately, I cannot test a CAN wire. Perhaps in the future they'll have an affordable device that will allow people to do that, but for the time being, all they have is like those CAN decoders like I showed in that video I made a few weeks ago. But that's a different deal. But man, these CAN bus systems are just terrific. And again, you can sew this all up and make it look pretty later. Get your main installation connections done, program it, test it. Once it's all validated, then you can go back in here and loom it all up, tape it, wire tie it, mount it, secure everything. But when you're doing your actual installation, it's much less frustrating to just leave it looking in its raw form before you actually get ready to sew it all up together. Okay, so I made my connections on the top, the BCM, and down here in the kick panel there's another computer, and at the bottom right pin it's like an 18 gauge wire. That's my starter. Then I got my accessory and my ignition right here, which I've already tested over here with my test light and the push to start button to validate that they're all right. So that's going to be these three, and after that I just have these two connections, and this install can just get programmed and done. So in here I have those three connections made. This is for my accessory, starter, and ignition. So I did my same connections like I always do, and I put a wire tie on the back end of it so that way to relieve the pressure. After the fact, you can, you know, do electrical tape or not, or you could just leave it be. You know, that's up to you. Then all I have left now, it looks like, is my CAN and some data wires and programming. We're getting there. So my last connection is this data wire, and it requires an interruption. So I went ahead and I cut this yellow, I'm sorry, not yellow. I cut this white with the orange stripe on it. And you have one side going to the computer side, one to the car side. So I'm just going to interrupt that here to here. Sew this up, and then I'm just going to program my system. Start enjoying this thing. All right. So the final step to do is to program this unit before I can actually use the remote starter. So what we're going to do is I already unplugged everything except for my shock sensor and my plug here for my linker module, because that doesn't matter anyway. This here is the plug for the auto transmission. You have to cut that for auto trans vehicle, so that was done as well. So what we do is we press and hold their program button while we insert the power plug. And then we wait for the LED to be on the red color. Got the red. Insert the remaining connectors. Here's my 20 pin. White can plug, red auxiliary plug. Then what? Press the button 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Flashes back at you 5 times. Hit the start button 2 times. 1, 2. Hit it 1 more time. Just shut off the ignition. And the remote is now programmed. Well, that was easy. Cluck, cluck, cluck. Cool, man. Now I just gotta connect my linker to this thing so I can use a smartphone. The wife will be loving me tonight. You also shut it down by 3 locks, or you can actually leave the vehicle running, hit the remote start and hit the brake, and you could actually leave it running in the pit stop mode with this thing. evo-one's cool. That shock sensor is pretty cool too. Watch this. Arm it. Come on, you critter. There you go. There's a one away. Yeah, taking a smack. Yeah. It works, trust me. It's just not cooperating right now. Ah yes, another satisfied customer.